Hello, scrappers and recyclers. Welcome to Shark Scrapper Live, where we're looking at precious metals, industrial metals, stocks that are surrounding the world of metals, and just having a great old time talking about how this all impacts our world of the scrap and recycling market. It is great to be here, and it looks like we're live and we're cooking along just the way we should be. So, it is fantastic to see you all and to see this working pretty well. I'm still learning my way around this new software called EV Mux, but I got to tell you what, I kind of like it. It's got some really good tools, and I think it's going to turn out really well for us on these live streams as I get more familiar with it. You know, like everything, it's challenging sometimes to learn software for the first time. So I want to say hello to everybody who's in here: Scrapping Irish, JR, Cat, Andrew Powell, David, Philly. Great to have you all here. Roger at CU Scrapping. Great to have you here. Let's see. Who did I miss here? Truck Fan is in the house. So great to see everybody. Um, let's do this. There we go. I have got so much to talk about today. So much. There's so much going on. But hey, before we get started, I do want to call everyone's attention to the scrap calendar that Everyday Solars has out for us to purchase and have out there. Roger, if you would go ahead and drop the link for that so that folks can find it. The funds from the calendar are going to help some very good organizations that were there for Everyday Solars as she helped her nephew as he dealt with cancer. Tragic story, but Everyday Solars was just spot on, rock solid, doing a great job. And my hat's off to everything that she put up with and dealt with as she was going through that for her nephew. There were some charities that were there for her, and she came up with this idea to do the calendar to support them. So if you can purchase a calendar, the proceeds are going to some great organizations. One of which I know because family members of mine have had to use them, the Ronald McDonald House, and they're a great organization. They are legit taking care of families so that the families don't have to worry about where they're going to stay while their children are getting medical attention for terrible things like cancer. All right, now let's dive right into our first discussion, and that is silver prices. So here's the silver chart from Trading Economics. No, I'm not sponsored by them. No, I'm not promoting them other than the fact that they got some pretty good charts. So I like the charts. I like their summary discussions. I like the things that they help us to understand. So if we go up here, we see that silver prices climbed back over $30.60 an ounce. So rebounding from an 11-week low. Basically, like gold, the thing that's driving silver prices are a combination of concerns for what's happening in the world. When people get concerned about instability in the world, they go to safe havens like gold and silver. And then as the U.S. Treasury lowers the interest rates, people can think about going into gold and silver because it costs less for them to hold that material that's not earning interest. So there's some good reasons for gold and silver to be going up right now, and we see that happening. Now, just to give you a perspective on this, because this is the 1 year, and we can see that we had a real nice climb here for the year. But let's go ahead and take a look at some longer term here. So if we look at the 5 year, we can see that we're in the range of, all-time highs for the 5 year. If we look at the 10 year, we are definitely in that area of the all-time highs. And if we look at the 25 year, we can see that the only time things were higher was back here in 2010 through 2012 when we were up in this $50 range for silver. And so I know a lot of folks are asking the question, will we get back up to that $50 range again? So did a lot of research on it over the week, and I found some interesting perspectives that people were putting out there about what could happen for silver. And the sort of the gist or the general feel of things is that we'll be in this 31-ish, we'll be around 31-ish, 31.40, 31.60 as we get towards the end of the year. They're thinking that these prices are going to go up here. And by the or going into 2025, there are some folks that are saying that we could see $50 an ounce. By 2028, they're saying that we could see $77 an ounce. I don't know about that, but $50 an ounce, we've been there before once in our lifetime. We could get there again. But let's go ahead and take a look here. Here's the week, and we're looking at 15-minute intervals. I'm going to change this because that really doesn't do us a whole lot of good. Let's go to 1-hour intervals, and let's go to our candlesticks. And let's go ahead and zoom in here, get a little closer to where we are now. And you can see that, we had these drop offs and tried to climb and then dropped, and then we're up and down. We're all over the place and dropping again here. So generally speaking, we had this drop here going into, from Thanksgiving going into this Thanksgiving holiday. And then it's been climbing back out again here. So if we zoom in even further, what do we see here? We see a lot of mixed signals. There's no clear signal on up or down at this stage right now. So I think we're going to see a little bit of sideways before things climb up again. But most folks do believe that we're going to see it climb up again before the end of the year. Now, here's a real question is, how do you invest in silver? There's a lot of folks that are out there and they want to invest in silver, but the question is, how do you invest in silver? So what I do is I use a site like APMEX, JM Bullion, one of those folks, and I will buy silver rounds or silver bars. I generally buy 1 to 10 ounce increment, 1 to 10 ounce rounds or bars. I don't do the smaller, half ounces and things like that, because the premium on them is not that good. You want to get as close to the spot value as you can. And I also don't buy things larger than 10 ounces because they can become problematic when it's time to sell. Because that's the bottom line, right? The value of the silver is nothing if you can't sell it. So selling does become a little bit of a challenge if it's over 10 ounces, because how are you going to sell it? Well, you're probably going to either try to sell it back to APMEX or one of those places that you bought it from, or you're going to go down to your local pawn shop, your gold jeweler, your coin dealer, and you're going to try to sell it to them. Now, they're probably going to be okay buying, 1, 5, 10 ounce rounds or bars, because if those were counterfeits, they haven't lost that much. It's not worth really trying to counterfeit, a silver 1 ounce bar and stuff. It's more work than what it's really worth when it comes right down to it. So those are the kind of things that they're comfortable buying those, especially if you have a relationship with that dealer. If you've been buying from your local coin dealer, when it's time to sell, they're going to know you, and they're going to, they'll know that, well, they probably sold that to you at some point. So they're probably comfortable with that. If you're selling back to APMEX, you need to ship it back to them. So you don't want to be shipping a 100 ounce brick of silver. So again, having those little smaller weights, rounds, and bars makes it much easier to ship things back to APMEX or somebody that you're going to be selling to. There are also a lot of people that like to buy what's called junk silver. These are old historical coins that had silver as part of the alloy that the coin was made out of. And that's another way for people to get the silver. I had a couple of people who have given me junk silver coins. I'm not big into junk silver myself, but that's another way to do it. And then, of course, there's the silver that we find in our scrap. And we can take the time to extract that silver and make our own silver bars or rounds or what have you. You'll have a difficult time selling those at spot because you don't have a known mint mark. But again, it's all about the relationships that you have when it's time to sell. So, how are you investing in silver? Let's take a look at some of the comments here and see what folks are doing when it comes to silver. Let's see. Let's go up here. Got some folks talking about the calendar. Very cool. Very cool. Hope you all will go ahead and get that. Truck Fan says silver being silver, just so jumpy. Yeah, absolutely. You definitely want to watch for that because it can go all over the place. Let's see. JR Cat is saying that he's got 2 kilograms that need to be refined. Okay. And most of his silver is junk. Let's see. Anybody else have some comments on their silver? We're going through here. Scrapping on the Fly. Welcome to the show, man. Great to have you here. All right. And let's see. Homer's Reluctant Odyssey. Welcome aboard. He says, I buy myself and my kids silver rounds and bars. Very cool. Yeah, that's a great way to do that for your kids, your grandkids. You get them silver rounds, silver bars, and let them accumulate it because who knows, you might in their lifetime, it might even be worth more than we're going to see. I know when I was researching silver this week, I saw some comments about people saying that, it's going to get to $100 an ounce. Now, I really don't see it getting up to $100 an ounce. I mean, in our lifetime, we've only seen it get up to around 50. No more than 50 was actually 49 something. So, man, I just think that the world needs to be in a really bad place for silver to get to $100 an ounce. So I wouldn't quite plan on that. All right. And Truck Fan is commenting about precious metals are a nightmare here because they charge VAT. But the coins are exempt. Okay, well, all right then. So go with the coins. That's interesting. Little collectible silver guitar collectibles. Very cool. All right, so I'm not going to be buying any silver right now. The price is a little bit rich for me at this stage, even though they say it's going to be going up. I'm going to watch it and, we'll see if it drops back down into the 20s. I might pick up some more silver. But right now I'm putting all of my available cash into getting the shark cage re-going, buying product for my inventory, that kind of stuff. So I'm not going to be doing any buying right now at these prices. All righty. Now, our safety note for the day is brought to you by the fact that it got into the 20s here up in the mountains of Western North Carolina. So our safety feature today is cold weather and the things that you have to do and think about when it's cold around you. Now, I realize that some of you, where you are in the world, it's not cold for you right now. As you're in you're on the flip side of our seasons, and that's fine. You can rewatch this, in 6 months when it is cold where you live. Cold is really kind of tricky because, in one sense, we know cold right away when we feel it, so we can react to it and prepare for it a little more. And cold has the advantage of that you can always put on more clothes if you have them available, right? So you can always layer up. And that's the best way to dress if you're going to be working out in the cold is with layers, because if all you have is one heavy coat on and a short sleeve shirt, well, you take that coat off and now you're freezing. But if you have layers, you can peel off a layer, let your temperature kind of adjust. You can always put it back on if you need to. So layering is the best way to protect yourself from the cold. Also, you want to make sure that your vehicle is in good working order because you don't want to get stuck out on the road with a broken down car and be out in a snowstorm or 20 degree weather in the teens, below freezing kind of weather. Um, you want to have gloves and you want to have something on your head because you lose a lot of heat through your head. So some sort of hat, a wool beanie, a fur cap, something like that. Also, you want to be careful for frostbite. The tips of our ears are really bad places, notorious for frostbite. Our fingertips, our toes, those can become frostbite because they're at the extremes. We don't have a lot of blood flowing in there. They're not insulated well with the rest of our body, and so we can get frostbite on those very easily. Plus, in our noses. Frostbite can be extremely dangerous, so you want to be really, really careful with those kind of things. And if your fingers start to become numb from the cold, if you can't feel your ears, if they're getting numb, that's a sign that you're got the early stages of frostbite going and you need to take action. If they start getting warm again and you haven't done anything, that's really bad. That's really, really bad because that means that you are in, I think that's like the second or third stage of frostbite, and that gets really dangerous. So the best thing to do, again, have a wool hat or a covering over your ears. That'll keep your ears from getting frostbite. Make sure you're wearing gloves so that your fingers aren't getting frostbite. If you definitely want to have your shoes on, right? But if your shoes get wet, then you need to get in someplace, get on dry shoes, dry socks, something like that to avoid frostbite on your toes. Do not rub snow on your hands when you have frostbite. It's not the right thing to do. It's an old myth. It's definitely not going to do anything but make the situation worse. All right, so yeah, don't do that. Be very, very careful when you go back inside and start warming up again. You don't want to just stick your hands in hot water because that can be really bad. So be very careful when you're rewarming. And if you have blisters and stuff that start to come up, you may need to think about going to the emergency room to be treated so that you don't get infections and stuff from the frostbite. And certainly, if your hands have gotten so numb and they're starting to turn black, you definitely need to go to the emergency room because that's a really bad situation. Another thing that can happen to us with the cold is hypothermia. You've got to be really, really careful with hypothermia as well, because you'll start getting cold and you'll start shivering, and basically hypothermia means your core temperature has gotten to the point where your body isn't functioning properly. And you need to treat that right away. You need to warm up right away. Now, you got to be careful because if you warm up too fast from hypothermia, you can put yourself into shock. So when I'm saying rewarm, I'm saying get inside, get someplace warm so that you stop losing heat to the outside. If somebody has gotten to the point with hypothermia where they're becoming incoherent or they're otherwise, having a hard time controlling their hands and their arm movements and things like that, that's a medical emergency. And so you need to get them to an ER, to a hospital. If you can't, then you at least need to get them inside and warm up. I have at times when I was in the service, when I was in the Navy, been so cold that I was uncontrollably shivering from cold, and it's a terrible, terrible thing. I mean, it is absolutely not the thing you want to deal with. So you definitely got to be careful with hypothermia. And when you are rewarming someone who has had hypothermia, again, you have to be very careful because there's the think of it like this: all of the blood that's out here in the extremes, their arms, their legs, is very cold. Their body is already, their core temperature is already below the level where your body is functioning normally. If you start rewarming them, that cold blood is going to get into the body and make it even worse. So you want to be very careful and rewarm slowly. Don't stick them in a hot bath or something like that, because that can be bad. So, get them inside, get them out of the cold, and have them start warming up. Get some blankets on them. Get them if they're conscious and they're able to, get them something warm to sip on. Don't have them guzzle coffee. Have them sip on something. Ooh, coffee. That reminds me. um, and then and warm up. Now I saw some comments over here in the chat that are extremely important to think about. And right here from JR Cat, he says, drink lots of water in cold weather. This is probably one of the things that is the hardest for us to pay attention to because we're cold. We don't think about drinking water, but it's so easy to get dehydrated. A lot of times, cold weather comes with dry air. And so you're losing a lot of your body moisture. You're probably sweating a lot and you don't realize it because it's drying off quickly in the dry air. And so it's very easy to get dehydrated in the cold weather. So you definitely want to make sure that you're staying hydrated. Drink a lot of water. Pay attention to your water intake. We forget about it because we just we when we're hot, we think about drinking water because we're hot. But when we're cold, we don't always think about drinking water. So it's something that you consciously need to do. And I'm terrible at this. When I'm out cutting some of the wood that Helene broke down in the yard, and I'm still cutting and splitting firewood for next year from the trees that came down. I got to put a bottle of water right out there with me and think about drinking it. Did I miss anything on the cold? I've got my notes here. I think I hit all the. Oh yeah, I know. There is one more thing that I want to get to. Um, a shot of rum or bourbon or something like that. That's not going to help you. Okay. That's not going to warm you up. All right. Now it may, feel good, but be really, really careful with the alcohol consumption. Especially if someone is getting kind of hypothermic or they're shivering cold and stuff like that, that rum and stuff is not really going to do them as much good as you might think it will. And I can just hear the thoughts going on in people's minds. Okay, what do you mean you're putting antifreeze in there? The blood won't freeze, that kind of stuff. All joking aside, though, be very, very careful with alcohol when you're really cold. It's not that good for you. I'm not saying that don't do it. I'm just saying don't expect that that's really going to make you warm again. Let's see. ICAST, great to have you here. Great to have you aboard. Who else came in? E-Waste Joe came in while we were chatting, commented that the VA will now consider heat and cold injuries for part of your disability claims for military folks. Yeah, that's good to know. I can bring that up. I'm already so highly, my disability is already pretty high. I mean, I was rated 80% when I left the Navy. And my VA doc here wants me to talk with what they call a VSO. They're a veteran support officer, and see about going back in to be reevaluated because of things that have gone on since then that are probably attributable to things that I experienced. But that's good to know that the heat cold injuries are being considered. for VA. Let's see. Anybody else come in? What? Patrick Williams. I don't remember if I said hello, not or yet. Patrick, welcome. Great to have you here. Let's see. All right. So I think we're caught up with everybody. I think we're caught up with the um, comments on the heat and cold. So let us get right into our next discussion. Unless you all thought of something uh, that let's see. ICAST says he's 60%. All right, very cool. By the way, for those of you that don't understand these numbers, when I said I was 80%, that doesn't mean I'm 80% disabled. What it means is that when the U.S. Veterans Affairs evaluates your veteran related compensation, you can go from 0 to 100% VA compensation. And they, when you retire, when you leave the service, they do an evaluation of what service related injuries you sustained. And then they have these numbers that are assigned to various injuries that were sustained over the course of your time in the military. And it's very weird math, and sometimes it doesn't always make sense, but you'll get this letter after they finish the evaluation, and it shows you all of the things that were evaluated, all the things they said were wrong, that, were service connected. And then they give you your final evaluation. And the numbers don't add one for one because there are, ways that they blend together depending upon the medical condition. So that 80%, when I say I'm 80%, what that means is that I'm eligible for, or that I get this dollar. I literally get a check every month, not a check, it goes into my bank account, but it's 80% of the maximum that I would otherwise get. And then there's a portion of it, depending on and I think it's 50%. So if you're lower than 50%, then it's a portion of your retirement is non-taxed. And then when you get over 50%, and don't quote me on these numbers here because I haven't looked at the math for a while, once you get over 50%, then it's non-taxable. There's also certain benefits that come along with being over 50% and being at 100%. So for instance, if you're 100% disabled, if you get 100% disability rating, you get free dental from the VA. So there's things like that go along with the different ratings, and it changes all the time. So if you're a veteran, a U.S. veteran, please don't take my word for what these things are. Contact your local veteran services officer, get set up with them, make sure that you've been evaluated, and if things change, don't be afraid to get reevaluated. Okay. Yeah, Jill, all of it, Jill says, all percents are untaxable. Yeah, it's just a question of whether or not it's coming out of your regular pay that's non-taxable, or it's in addition to your base retirement pay. So that may be a retirement issue and not not for folks that aren't retired. All right, so let's get into our industrial metal. We had a little sidetrack there, didn't we? Okay, our industrial metal for the day is going to be aluminum. I love how everybody makes a big deal about how they pronounce aluminum. Now, it goes back to some historical roots when there actually was another syllable in the word. So some places still say aluminium, some places say aluminum, and a lot of us will just say alley because we don't want to get caught up in the mix. However you say it, aluminum is a very important industrial metal. We can see here, we're looking at the 1 year for aluminum, and what we can see is that for the year, aluminum is up. We're up around 2,601. That's for a ton. I think it's on the order of $1.18 or so a pound right now. We can see that in the summary discussion, aluminum went up 9.1% since the beginning of 2024. So very cool. And it reached an all-time high of 4,103 in March of 22. So let's go back and look at where we at here. So here was the all-time high for aluminum here, and we are way off of the all-time high for aluminum down here. When you really look at this, since about what's this, the summer, fall of 22, to where we are right now, what do we got going here? I mean, it looks like it's bouncing across this line here, and that's in here somewhere around 2507-ish or something like that. So we haven't had a whole lot of movement in in aluminum. Excuse me, had to take a swig of coffee going on now. But let's take a look now at our what we call the candlestick charts. Again, I'm not going to try to teach you how to read candlestick charts, but they can be a really good indicator tool as you get to know them. And there's lots of sources on YouTube that you can look at, and plenty of research material out there for understanding candlestick charts, what they're telling you, and how to read them. I'm going to go back to the 1 year because this 5 year doesn't do us a whole lot of good. Yeah, we see the spike that was here, but let's go back to the 1 year. And you can see that each candlestick represents 1 day of trading. All right, so we got the 1D, so it's 1 day of trading. We're going to zoom in here. And what we can see going on here is, here it opened here, it closed down here, and then here were the high and low. So this is called the body of the candlestick. And then these little lines poking out the top and bottom are called the wicks. And you can see there was a lot of activity going on here, but it ended up low. Again, this candlestick, this was a red candlestick. The price opened here, it closed here at the end of the day, and you have movement going on in here. This green candlestick means that it opened down here and it closed at the end of the day up here. And then you had these tiny little wicks on either side of it, but there was good solid movement upward here and here. But what you can see over the long term for going back into October here is that, we've just got a lot of fluctuation. We're going up and down and up and down and up and down. So where are we right now? Well, we've got this right here, and let's zoom in on this right now. You can see this thing right here. That's a doji. Very little movement in the price of the metal, but that's coming off of a holiday and that kind of thing. That doesn't, I wouldn't read too much into it. But you can also see we had these red dojis back here. Normally, what this is telling you is there's not much happening. I mean, there's very little change in the price for the day. And when you have all this kind of gyration going on leading up to it, don't expect to see a whole lot of change in aluminum. Now, if we start to see the price coming out of here, then you have good reason to believe that prices will continue to rise for some period of time. All right, so what does that mean for us from the scrap world, the recycling world? What do we want to be thinking about for our aluminum scrap? My advice is keep taking it in. Just keep taking it in. Your yards prices are probably going to have a little bit of variability here, but you're not going to. There's no reason to hold it. We're not looking at anything that's going to drive the prices up fast, and you risk losing it because we just don't have a whole lot going on here. And there's just nothing to really drive this, market to new highs or new lows. So I would say keep moving your aluminum. Get it in there, get it to your yard. If you really, really want to play the game, maybe hold a little bit back. Whatever your yard's highest grade of aluminum is, if you can, you maybe hold that back. But I treat aluminum as just a way to keep the cash flow going. There just isn't much reason here to try to hold back your aluminum. So, what are you all hearing from your yards? Are is your yard manager telling you anything? And what kind of stuff is potentially happening with your yards for aluminum prices? Let's see here. Homer's Reluctant Odyssey is saying that he found some magnesium recently. All right, and he only got 20 cents a pound. Yeah, yeah. Well, um, the other big one is aluminum cans, right? So some yards recycle aluminum cans, some don't. They almost always, if they do, if your yard does buy aluminum cans, it's going to be priced different from others. And I found a really interesting number this week when I was doing some more background research on aluminum and aluminum recycling. But in the United States, we recycle less than half of our aluminum cans. Think about that. I mean, in the United States, we have, there's all kinds of places where where you can where you can recycle your aluminum cans. There's blue buckets everywhere for aluminum cans. A lot of scrap yards will buy aluminum cans, and yet still we recycle less than half of the aluminum cans that we manufacture in the United States. The dollar figure on that value, by the way, comes out to something over $800 million a year that is just getting thrown into the landfill. Think about that. $800 million a year that we are literally just throwing away because we're not recycling aluminum cans. And those are the easiest things in the world for aluminum recyclers to deal with. I saw another statistic that said that it can take less than 30 days for an aluminum can that gets dropped off at a recycling center to be turned into a new aluminum can. So there's just, really, there's no reason for us not to be recycling aluminum cans. Come on, for goodness sake. I know that in some places, my experience, of course, is U.S. based, but I listen and I see comments from you all about Canada and the United Kingdom and throughout Europe. And so, some places you don't take them to a recycling center, you take them to a buyback center. In fact, Truck Fan, I believe that's a big one for you, isn't it? That's one of the things that you frequently refer to as returnables, isn't it? So, aluminum cans, glass bottles are frequently bought by a special organization. Sometimes when I lived on Cape Cod, they would take the glass bottles at the liquor stores. They had a machine. You would shove the bottle in there, it would spin it around and read the barcode. And if the barcode told the machine that it was that you had paid the 5 cent, or someone had paid the 5 cent deposit, then you would get that 5 cent deposit back again. So you never wanted to remove the labels from the glass beer bottles when you live in Cape Cod. People get mad at you. Cans, they don't usually do that. They just get smushed. You definitely want to, if you've wondered about aluminum cans, if you have a way to get them to the recycle market, you should do it by all means, because it's a really underserved aluminum market, and it's so easy. Most places, when you recycle your aluminum cans, they say they want them clean, but I don't know how they're going to check that. And a lot of times what they're saying when they say they want them clean is they don't want other metals mixed in there, right? So the yard that I used to go to down in Jacksonville, Florida, the cans had to be smashed, and you would dump them out. They had a separate bin with a camera on it. And so you would weigh the bag, and then you would dump it into this bin with a camera looking in there, and they'd watch, the guy, they'd help you too, but they'd be watching to make sure that there wasn't a brick or a full bottle of water or other material in that bag, because yes, there are scumbags out there that try to get away with that kind of stuff. That's just stealing, right? And there's no reason to do that. Plus, do you really think that a lot of these scrapyards are that stupid that they don't know what the average trash bag full of aluminum cans should weigh? I mean, come on. That's just, they're not idiots. They may not care. That's a different thing altogether. I mean, some of these folks are minimum wage. It's cold and nasty weather, and they don't care because they don't think about the fact that if the yard they're working for gets ripped off, then people have to get laid off because they can't afford to pay the salaries. Totally different story right there. Bottom line is, don't try to rip off your scrapyard. Take your aluminum cans how they want them. Most places want them crushed and in a bag or something like that. And, that's the way to recycle them. Other aluminum that's out there, we see it all the time. When I was street scrapping, we would see it all the time in the frames, window frames, door frames, screen door frames, aluminum framing there. You've got a lot of aluminum in the electronic scrap industry because a lot of cases and braces and things like that are made out of aluminum. We have aluminum heat sinks that are in a lot of the material that we bring in. So there's a lot of aluminum available for recycling, and we really need to be recycling more of the aluminum than what we do. Such a small number of aluminum that gets recycled, and it would really help if we did recycle more of it. What are the forecasts for aluminum recycling? As I looked, as I was researching this, generally up. So I saw a forecast that had it going up to say 2650 a ton, 2646 a ton by the end of the year, and next year 2789-ish a ton. So generally an upward trend to aluminum. But again, so much of that depends upon the consumption by big industrial users like building manufacturers, automobiles, wire cable, aluminum cabling. So there's a lot of it that's tied to our electrification initiatives around the world. If we continue to push forward with electrification and we keep building things, then aluminum should continue to rise in prices. But it can always, all it takes is something screwy to go on to throw a monkey wrench into that. So be careful with your aluminum. Just keep it moving. Just keep it moving. Don't try to time it out. Just keep it moving. Okay, let's see. What kind of comments do we have on aluminum going on here? Yeah, Truck Fan said that that's his scrap is returnables, PET bottles, and aluminum cans. Yeah, someday I'm going to do a thing on plastics. That's an ugly one. Yeah, it's a really ugly one, plastics. Let's see. Scrapping on the fly. I wish they'd bring the glass recycling back. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know whatever happened to it. That used to be a big thing. Well, at least, I don't, where you're living, I don't know what's going on there. I remember, going around looking for bottles, beer bottles, Coke bottles, soda bottles, get enough of those back in and be able to buy myself a soda when I was a kid. I remember that. Yeah. Yeah, you used to collect them and separate them by color. Now there are some places that, and I can do a thing on glass one of these days too. I think I will. I'll make a note to do something on glass because there are still some places, some recyclers who are trying to recycle glass. It's not as easy as aluminum to recycle, but it is very recyclable, and it has a lot of different uses. They can literally make sand out of it. I didn't know if you knew that, but they can make sand out of it. You can grind glass down so fine, that it's the silica particles that aren't going to cut you, and then it's basically sand. And if it's separated by color, then you can have the colored sands. It can also then be used to make other glass again. So, yeah, there are places that are still recycling glass. Maybe I'll do a live stream on that one day. Put it in with the instead of an industrial metal. Maybe talk about glass. Let's see. Plane Scrapper, welcome, Plane Scrapper. I don't think I said hello yet. Plane Scrapper says he has two trash cans full of cans. That's typically his trigger to haul it in. Okay, well, hey, Plane Scrapper, what do you usually get when you take in a couple of trash cans full of aluminum cans? What's your usual bring back on that? Truck fan says he's behind on his renewables. We'll get to work, man. Come on. Dub Stomp, welcome. Great to have you here. Let's see. Most places that buy plastics need them to be bulk amount and crushed and baled, right? Yeah, that's my understanding. Back when I had a buyer for my plastics, he stopped buying from me because I couldn't generate enough plastic for him. So he didn't require that I have it separated, and well, it had to be separated by grade, one, two, three, etc. But it didn't have to be baled. He did that at his place. Um, but yeah, most places they want you to have a lot of it, and that adds to one of the challenges for recycling plastics, as if there aren't enough challenges. Uh, Grandpa's telling me to write that down or I'll forget it. Yeah. Oh man. Um, let's see here. Any other comments on our aluminum can? We actually spent a lot of time talking about glass and plastic when we were talking about aluminum cans, didn't we? Yep. Oh, here we are. From Plain Scrapper, he says between 30 to 50 cents a pound, so 20 to 50 bucks. Yeah, there you go. All right. That's not bad for a couple of trash can loads. I mean, you're going to be drinking your sodas or your beers anyway, so why not? Speaking of that, oh man. So, a lot of you know that I don't drink alcohol. I haven't drank alcohol for quite some time now. But I really was wanting that taste of beer because I love the taste of beer. There's a brewery here in Western North Carolina, very close to where I live, called Sierra Nevada. It's one of their breweries, and they have come out with a great line of NA beers. Um, so when you are, it's like Trail Pass, I believe, Trail Pass IPA, Trail Pass Blonde. They've got a couple of different varieties, but yeah, if you're in the market for an NA beer and you want something that tastes really good, I mean, it tastes as close to real beer as you're going to get. I recommend the Sierra Nevada brand NA beers. Really, really good. Um, and I think it's 0.5% alcohol or something like that. It's a good way to have that flavor of beer without the alcohol. Oh, let's see. All right, so ICAST says he's been sober since 2025. Very cool. Very, very cool. Yeah. So ICAST, if you want a good NA beer, give it a try. Those are very tasty. All right, so it is time to get into our stock market discussion today. And again, the stocks that we're going to look at today were brought to you by the cold weather that set in because um, I have my house is heated with natural gas, and I heard the heater come on a lot recently. Um, so I decided to go back and take a look at natural gas companies again. You may recall last week we talked a little bit about one of the natural gas companies. I'm going to look at two more to compare. So the first one that we're going to take a look at here, excuse me, is National Fuel Gas. Their ticker symbol is NFG, and their current yield is 3.4%, which isn't great. That's as of the 22nd of November, so it's a little bit dated. The mail got behind on the deliveries of my investment source. So, and for those of you that don't know, I get all of these numbers from a weekly bulletin called the Value Line Investment Survey. They don't take any advertising dollars. So everything that they put out is pure numbers and their analysis of the numbers. So it's a really good unbiased source of investment information on publicly traded stocks. All right, so the price for NFG was 61.47. The other thing that I require if I'm going to invest in a company is that they have to have either increasing cash flow per share for the last 17 years, increasing earnings per share, or increasing dividends per share every year for the last 17 years. And you can see that they are qualified because their dividends have gone up every year for the last 7 years. But here's the thing. At $61 a share, and they're only throwing off 3.4% interest, I think there's better places for our money. So let's go see one of those better places. And here we are with Northwest Natural Holding, ticker symbol NWM. They're yielding 4.7%. Now that's a pretty good number right there, 4.7, and it's very affordable at $41.44 a share. And they are just as good, if not better, because they're a Div Zero. So they've increased their dividends every year for the last 17 years. Here, let's take a quick look at what that looks like graphically. They had this hit here in 2017 for their cash flow per share, but otherwise their interest is nice and stable, increasing. So it really looks like what they're trying to do is keep that dividend in the 4 to 5% range, so that makes them investor friendly. What I like about a stock like this is it is a pretty stable investment. You can put your money in and feel pretty good that, excuse me, I'm sorry about coughing. Put your money in, you're pretty comfortable with the dividend that you're going to get. It's it's a natural gas industry, so it's not as, if you will, not as bad for some people as, say, an Exxon or Chevron. And even in our current world of climate change, where temperatures tend to fluctuate a lot, which can have some volatility, you look for a good company, a good stable company that hedges against those. And a lot of industries will still use a lot of natural gas, even when the prices, even if people aren't using it to heat their homes or to cook with, you're still going to have a lot of natural gas getting used by industries. So it's not a bad place if you want to be in the energy sector. And then you may recall that last week we also talked about a company called UGI Corp. They're also in this world. And you can see their dividend at 6.4, and that is a very sweet dividend there at 6.4%, and that's only $23.94. So that's even less expensive. And look at this, they're also a Div Zero. Plus, when they weren't qualified, it was fewer times up here. So for their cash flow and earnings, a little less volatile. So let's go down here and look at that graphically. You can see that, remember where NWM had this dip right here? We do not see that with UGI. So of the three companies, I would go with UGI. And full disclosure, this green that you see here means that I either currently own or have owned this stock in the past. So I just want to, be upfront with everybody. You can probably tell right away why, because if you've been watching my live screens for any amount of time, you know that I'm a really boring investor. I want to put my money in there. I want to get my dividends, and I don't want to have to worry about it. And this is exactly the kind of company that feels good to me for my investment dollars. Now, why is this important to us in the recycling world? Well, because a lot of recyclers and a lot of scrapyards and recycling companies, they use natural gas as part of their processes. So we want to, this is a place that we expect to see them, doing good. It relates to what we're doing because it's a part of what drives pricing for the various metals in our industry. Now, here's a question for you all. I bet you guys know this one right away. I know that you guys know this, but in the aluminum industry, in the aluminum recycling industry, what is the primary energy source for melting the aluminum scrap? Let's see what your comments come up in. Let's see what your comments are. What is the primary energy source in the industrial scale for melting aluminum scrap? Oh, looking for those comments to come in. And first on the mark is ICAS Enterprises with electricity. Yes. I really want to get to one of these yards and see one of them. And because I got to imagine that those arc welding furnaces just must be really amazing to see. And I'd really like to get out there and see one someday. I hope that as a channel, I get to a size where I can call one of these places and say, hey, I'm Shark Scrapper. I've got, however many thousands of subscribers. I'd like to come out and do a little deal on your plant. Can we do that? And see if I can get big enough that they'll let me come out there and talk to them. Most places just say, you're not big enough for us to waste our time with, go away. But someday we'll get there. Plain Scrapper says he's still got some coal-fired at their places. So yeah, that there's still going to be some of that left over, and sometimes it's the coal-fired power plants that are making the electricity that's used in the actual furnace. That's the arc furnace that's melting the electronics. So hey, freaking awesome! Great to see you here, man. Welcome to the live stream. All right, we had some really cool discussions here about silver and aluminum. We talked about cold weather safety and the things you need to pay attention to. We had a few side tracks going down some rabbit holes talking about glass bottles and plastics, and that happens. That's fine. That's what we enjoy doing here. I hope that you all enjoyed the discussion, and I think we've got this figured out. I think we got it figured out now. I think I'm learning the software. I'm getting a little smoother. It's this new software package called EV Mux. I told you last week I shifted over to it because StreamYard got bought out by somebody who bought out the original StreamYard people. They doubled, almost tripled the prices. It just got too expensive for what I needed. And EV Mux is much more affordable for the level of effort for the level of my use for it. So, I'm not saying StreamYard is bad software. StreamYard is still a very good app to use. It's just got too expensive for what I need. And EVMux had a plan that was more in the affordability range for what I'd use it for. So that's why I shifted over to EVMux. If you do any live streaming or you're thinking about doing any live streaming, I would check out EVMux and StreamYard. Compare them both and see what you want to go with. Excuse me. It is time now to head across the pond. And one of the things that I haven't figured out yet here is how to set up the redirect. I need to go back over in YouTube and do that. So anyway, I have not set up the redirect, but we are going to head across the pond to Ireland, and we're going to join Scrapping Irish, where he has a bit more of a free-flowing kind of formatted live stream discussion on e-waste and scrap and recycling. You never know who's going to come up in the panel. There's always a few of the usual culprits. But I'm going to head on over there as soon as I end this broadcast. I hope to see all of you over there. And when you get over there, tell Scrapping Irish that Shark sent you. Have a safe week, everybody. We'll see you over in Ireland.